You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your Psychedelics and Cannabis news source. We're live here at the Legacy420.com news desk at CBG TV and paceradio.net. Good morning, Glenn. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Al. How are you?
Not too bad. A little tired this morning, but other than that, I'll be just rip roaring to go here to get the news out to everybody.
I'm just cold. I'm glad I'm inside today. That's it.
Yes. Well, it's cool here too, but here we are 10 days away from Christmas and we're still getting plus temperatures. I think like tomorrow's high is like 8.
Wow, we're not getting that. I don't know what it is tomorrow, but we're not going to hit 8 again. I can't imagine until spring.
No, we got some plus temperatures coming in the forecast anyways. So.
Well, send them this way if you can.
Well, we do our best. Most of our weather does head east, but sometimes the stuff that's coming up from the south for you overrides.
When I need it most, it's going to go the other way. Yeah.
All right, we'll get into the news. We got 9 stories today, and we start off right here in Canada with the first couple. The first one is a Nova Scotia cannabis activist accused of not reporting $2.5 million in sales and faces huge tax penalties.
And this is from Ottawa. Chris Ennis deliberately structures finances so it cannot determine taxable income. In this year's medical marijuana activism, Chris Ennis has been arrested, faced multiple police raids, argued the finer points of constitutional law in court, and championed for the rolling back of laws that restrict who can sell cannabis. But out of the public view, a battle of another kind has been brewing. The Canada Revenue Agency is claiming the 39-year-old Halifax area man and his company didn't report more than $2.5 million worth of sales at his illegal dispensaries a decade ago, according to court records.
This is not the first time this has happened. I know that Ted Smith, Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, he went through this as well, and it's a big battle. He ended up with huge fines or a big bill in the end. Had to claim bankruptcy, all that stuff afterwards. And
I'm sure that's what they're trying to do to him too.
That's what they're trying to do here. This is trying to bankrupt,
guaranteed.
Ted, Chris, and see what happens. So yeah. It's a number that, if upheld by a judge, will likely lead to a huge tax bill. It could also cast N's operations, long portrayed as a altruistic in a different light, one of the highly profitable ventures. Enns, who was at the forefront of the medical cannabis movement in Halifax, said in an email he believes he is being unfairly targeted by the CRA. He said the sales numbers put forward by the agency are not accurate, and he has no unreported income.
The case, which dates back to the years of 2012 to 2014, is moving through the tax court of Canada at a time when the CRA has dialed in its focus on illegal income from drug dealers to fraudsters. This spring, it quietly set up a full-time illicit income program that includes 80 auditors across the country. From April to the end of August, the agency said specialized teams have completed 90 audits, identified $74 million in unreported income and $24 million in tax owing, and issued $7 million in penalties.
There is no evidence in tax court records that Enns, an advocate for medical cannabis, who has maintained his interests, lies in helping patients with debilitating diseases, is in the same camp as organized crime or cocaine dealers living lavish lifestyles. The CRA acknowledges in court records his circumstances were unique, as he held no assets and had no bank accounts.
But in court records, the federal government does not level significant allegations against Ennis, arguing that he deliberately structures his finances so that the government cannot determine the taxable income of his business and himself, an allegation he denies. 2 years ago, Ennis and a numbered company he controls filed appeals after the Minister of National Revenue confirmed tax reassessments that found more than $2.5 million in unreported revenue over a 3-year period.
The reassessments also disallowed tens of thousands of dollars of expenses and issued more than $654,000 in gross negligence penalties to Enns and the company. No date of the appeal has been set. It appears from the court records that the CRA's interest in Enns is closely connected to his arrests on trafficking charges and police raids of his dispensaries in 2013-2014. In building its tax case, the agency relied in part on information in an accounting analysis prepared by the police.
The CRA declined to comment on the case, but audits of illegal incomes are commonly prompted by tips from law enforcement, according to Eric Ferron, who's the Director General of the agency's illicit income audit program. Specialist auditors use indirect verification methods to try to determine income, such as combing through bank and credit card records and examining assets such as luxury vehicles in an effort to quantify profits from criminal activities.
The CRA can garnish future wages, seize assets like boats and homes, or ask the Department of Justice to seek jeopardy orders through the courts to put liens on property. It is difficult, but it is the right thing to do, Ferran says. At the end of the day, we want to promote tax fairness, and we also want to disrupt illicit financial flows. People shouldn't profit from illegal activity, and people should pay their fair share of taxes.
While the CRA efforts to tax illegal income may surprise many Canadians, the agency has been doing so for years, and court rulings dating back a century have affirmed authorities have such power. In 1926, for instance, Canada's highest court of appeal at the time, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council to the United Kingdom, ruled an Ontario garage owner who had been trafficking in liquor contrary to temperance laws was obligated to pay income tax on his illegal profits.
Yeah, that was a question that we asked Ted during one of our interviews with him. Was like it's an illegal product. Is the government? Why is it okay for the government to profit over an illegal sale? Because that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and they say it's hands off. It's a hands off government department. That's what they always claim. So they can go after whoever is doing something wrong in their eyes, not necessarily in the federal government's eyes.
Yeah, but the government's getting the money in the end.
Yeah, in the end, yes.
The government's getting the money, so they're the ones that are profiting off of it.
And they're paying the auditors.
Yeah. Don't have the auditors, and you won't have a bill. But over the last decades, Enns has been charged multiple times with cannabis-related offenses, but has managed to beat back most prosecutions. In some cases, charges have been dropped. In another, he successfully argued there was insignificant information on a search warrant violating his charge of rights. It is tentatively set to go on trial next year, or he is tentatively set to go on trial next year on trafficking charges related to a 2017 traffic stop where police said they seized nearly 3 kilograms of cannabis from a vehicle. I remember that.
That was 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago now. And they're just getting to court over it now.
Yeah.
The CRA case is new territory for Enns, delving not into whether his business is legal, but whether he has accurately reported income from cannabis sales and the resulting benefits he received as a company shareholder. It involves both Enns and a numbered company, the numbers there, Nova Scotia Limited, which operates as the Grow Shop in the Burnside Industrial Park in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Enns was a 50% shareholder at that time.
Enns and the company dispute the CRA's sales numbers, saying they don't take into account the cost of the goods. The CRA acknowledges that its sales figures are projections in 2 of the 3 years, but says sales grew exponentially during that period. In court records, Enns argues the grow shop sold gardening hydroponic supplies and that cannabis products were provided through a separate business, the not-for-profit Cannabis Halifax Compassionate Club, and later the Pharmacist Cannabis Resource Center.
The federal government counters that the Halifax Compassionate Club never filed a tax return and didn't keep records required for a not-for-profit. All of N's businesses, the government argues, was in fact conducted through the numbered company whose books and records are unreliable. N's attempted to structure his business affairs so that expenses are claimed but revenue sources are either not reported or underreported, according to the government's reply to the appeal notices.
In an email, Enn says the many criminal proceedings against him have been bookkeeping difficult, and he is trying to bring his records up to date. He said his only asset is a 2010 Honda Civic. The CRA is basing its assertions on documents that were developed in the process of criminal prosecution that was withdrawn by the Crown, he says. Not only were the numbers in the document artificially generated, but the document itself is being used improperly by the CRA.
Dana Larson, a cannabis dispensary operator and prominent activist in Vancouver for the legalization of psychedelic drugs, said he encourages storefront owners intent on challenging drug legislation to ensure their businesses comply with other laws. His dispensaries have been raided by police a number of times over the years, including 3 locations last month that sell magic mushrooms. Larson himself has been arrested.
But when he said he hasn't what he said hasn't happened in his years of activism is a CRA audit. He said he keeps detailed payroll and business records, submits sales tax, and files tax returns. My goal is not to challenge the laws around paying GST or income tax. Our goal is only to challenge the laws around cannabis and psychedelic access, he says. You've got to be very targeted in what laws you're breaking and why and how you're breaking them.
Makes sense. It's that's a hard one.
Yeah.
The numbers thing kind of gets me, because if they're using made-up numbers, then they're going to get a made-up judgment.
And they have to make up or create those numbers based on the fact that there is no records of those sales.
Yeah, and I don't know how. I honestly don't know how you go about doing something like that. So
yeah, see, I got the sun going on here. All right, on to our next story. Headline says psilocybin will be legalized in a court case. This comes to us from Cision, the Newswire.
Toronto, December 7th, 2023. Today, Fun Guy spokesperson Samer Akila served a notice of constitutional question on a federal and provincial governments, putting them on notice that he intends to legalize psilocybin in his London, Ontario court case. Mr. Akila says the psilocybin laws are contrary to freedom of thought under Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Lawyers Paul Lewin and Jim Dean are proud to be arguing these important issues. Psilocybin enhances thought in many ways. It promotes focus, mindfulness, openness, connectivity, creativity, cognitive flexibility, interpersonal closeness, gratitude, well-being, peace, calm, compassion, empathy, awe, spirituality, life meaning, and ego dissolution. Wow. Psilocybin is a freedom. I can't believe he got all that out. I would have had to write that down. Psilocybin is a freedom of thought tool. Psilocybin is a freedom of thought, what the printing press was to freedom of expression, what a passport is to freedom of mobility, or what a church is to freedom of religion. It is a tool that allows one to experience what freedom is in a more fulsome manner. Man, this guy can write. He's good.
Freedom of thought is the most important of all rights. Thought is profoundly important for the democratic, religious, philosophical, spiritual, romantic, creative, medical, social, and professional decisions. Freedom of thought is necessary for the proper exercise of almost all other activities or rights, including freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom of opinion, and the right to vote. This will be the first freedom of thought case in Canada. If Mr. Akil is successful, then the federal government will have to amend the law to permit adults reasonable access to psilocybin for freedom of thought purposes. Lawyer Paul Lewin states this case will legalize psilocybin.
Man, this guy. He's got a lot of words.
and this is what they're going to be talking about in the court case. Paul Lewin's been big in the cannabis end of things. He's involved in the psychedelics and helping out, I believe, some of these stores that have been raided and stuff. I believe I've read his name in some of those reports. So, yeah. And he's a good guy. I know. I used to see him at the rallies, talk to him there, see him on the stage, where he talked to the people.
And does he talk like that?
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's got, All right, on to our next story. And this one, there we go. I got it coming on us. This one comes to us from the Marijuana Moment. Headline says, federal rescheduling of marijuana could lead to cascade of state-level changes. Let's hope that's for the good, but
we're going to find out. If the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, reschedules cannabis to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act, which is the CSA, experts say the change would not only have big implications for cannabis at the federal level, but could also cause a series of legal adjustments in states. As a result of so-called trigger laws, most U.S. states would either automatically reschedule cannabis to follow a change in its federal status, or would begin a process to reclassify the substance. The ripple effect would impact politics, criminal justice, and medical cannabis, among other issues.
Broadly, states fall into one of three categories in terms of the response to federal rescheduling. In slightly more than half of federal scheduling change automatically triggers state-level rescheduling. In others, federal rescheduling would initiate a process requiring further action by the state legislature or a controlling state authority. And about 10 states don't directly tie their scheduling decisions to drugs' federal status.
And that's according to Sean Hauser.
That's according to Sean Hauser.
Sorry, I thought you stopped there.
Go ahead. Yep,
an attorney who co-chairs cannabis-focused law firm Vincent LLP's Hemp and Cannabinoids Department. The majority of states have a state scheduling procedure automatically triggered by a schedule change at the federal level. She told Marijuana Moment, the state is required under the state law to control the substance in accordance with state law, unless there's an objection by the state regulatory body.
In Texas, figures. For example, rescheduling would happen automatically under the state's trigger law. The Commissioner of the Department of State Health Services would have 30 days after receiving a notice of federal scheduling to similarly reschedule unless the commissioner objects. Among other potential changes, the state-level shift could give Texans broader access to high THC medical marijuana. Currently, patients are limited to produce containing no more than 1% THC.
Wow, 1%. You know what's funny? When you read Texas, I had the instant response that you had. Instantly, it's so it's automatic.
So, and reading it so far, other than this THC level, it sounds like if the federal level will change, they're going to change theirs to match the federal level. So
1%. What the hell? What do you do?
I know.
In automatic trigger states where cannabis is currently illegal for all uses, such as Idaho, rescheduling would essentially clear a path for medical marijuana, at least in certain cases. In states without an automatic rescheduling process, further action would be required from the state legislature and other controlling authority. Hauser said, for example, in Kansas, lawmakers have the ability to make scheduling changes without or with recommendations from the Board of Pharmacy. Wow.
Such state-level rescheduling efforts were on display after the Food and Drug Administration granted approval to Epidiolex. which is a CBD oral solution that in 2018. And then the federal government subsequently moved CBD to Schedule 5 of the CSA. After that, the maker of Epidiolex, then known as GW Pharmaceuticals, now Jazz, went state by state to ensure states made similar scheduling changes at the state level. Yet, other states have laws specifying that action is discriminatory. In Virginia, for state, state law says regulators may amend rules in order to match scheduling changes at the federal law, but no formal action is required.
And for what effects state level rescheduling would have on residents, impacts would likely vary significantly based on how the state currently handles cannabis, Hauser said. In states that already have legal medical or adult use cannabis, she expects little will change. I think
she says. I think she says, I think in those states it would be moot because those states have already chosen to regulate cannabis less restrictively than federal laws, knowing that the federal government likely isn't going to enforce or pursue federal enforcement policies. Now, Hauser doubted that states with mature cannabis systems would roll back their laws to adhere to strict Schedule 3 restrictions. He says, I think states like Colorado and Washington and others with mature regulatory models and a mature industry, I don't think this will happen. This will turn back the clock on them.
And states without any legal form of cannabis, meanwhile, would likely see at least limited access for medical patients as the eventual result of rescheduling. With the drug regulated more akin to other Schedule 3 substances, such as ketamine and Tylenol with codeine, at least one additional FDA-approved cannabis medicines become available. The process of FDA approval, however, could take years and require millions of dollars in research and application fees. Beyond those formal legal challenges, Hauser also expects broader state-level rescheduling to have a political impact by fueling the changing conversation around cannabis among doctors, elected officials, law enforcement, and others.
Yeah, she says, as we've seen with the way it's federally classified, the way it's classified at the state level, state level colors how doctors look at it, how government officials look at it, how police look at it, parents, everyone. Schedule 3 means it has an acknowledgement of medical use and lower potential for abuse. That's going to make it much different conversation with doctors and in healthcare and in conversations with the government, she continues.
In addition to helping facilitate broader reform around medical cannabis, Hauser said that perspective could also change how law enforcement handles cannabis cases. While she noted that most cannabis crimes are based on volume and not on the drug-specific schedule, she said prosecutors and sentencing judges might nevertheless take into consideration cannabis's lower schedule when processing cases. Viewing cannabis in the lens of Schedule 1, it shaped prosecutors and it shaped judges, she said.
The change could also put further pressure on governors to pardon people with past cannabis convictions, especially for simple possession. Hauser says that when Biden made the announcement to reschedule cannabis, he also pardoned federal prisoners, which there are a few, and directed state governors to do the same. Much of what needs to happen at the pardon level is at the states. Yeah, because they've been charged under state crimes, not federal crimes.
Yep. Rescheduling at the state level would provide another opportunity. Meanwhile, as DEA reviews the federal cannabis rescheduling recommendation from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, some opponents have attempted to scuttle the process. Of course.
Pete Simmons, for one, filed a legislative amendment to block the Biden administration from rescheduling cannabis. The provision would prevent federal funds from being used to reschedule, or reclassify marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act.
Wow.
Sessions recently led a letter urging DEA to reject the top reschedule cannabis and instead keep it in the most restrictive category under the CSA. Jesus Christ.
In September, 2 Republican senators
on,
introduced a separate bill that would strip DEA of its rescheduling power, preventing all federal agencies from rescheduling cannabis without approval from Congress. The same month, 14 GOP lawmakers sent a letter urging DEA to reject the cannabis rescheduling recommendation.
Wow. Well, cannabis rescheduling would not full federally legalize access through current state-level medical cannabis programs. It would free up research into the plant that has significant implications for the cannabis industry. Congressional lawmakers across party lines have applauded the top health agency's recommendation. Some have described it as an important step on the path to federal legalization. Others have claimed credit for the move, pointing to their years of advocacy around cannabis reform. There you go.
Yep. I don't understand why it's so difficult.
I really. It is. It's sad, really. There's no
After
reason,
all these years and all these
whatsoever.
millions and millions and millions of people that use cannabis as a medicine and as just a relaxation tool, you'd think there'd be some kind of a change in attitude in at least in the government people. You know, these people are supposed to be educated.
Supposed to be. Exactly. Oh, I got the wrong story lined up there. Better change that. That would throw you off. All right. Up next. This one comes to us from NBC News, and it asks, could a little-known psychedelic drug treat opioid addiction? Kentucky wants to find out.
As the opioid epidemic continues raging, some advocates in Kentucky are pushing the state to explore a little-known psychedelic drug called ibogaine as a possible treatment option for addiction, a move they say could save lives. A state committee is considering funding research into the drug, marking the first time a state has looked into such an approach and underscoring the urgent need to expand the playbook to combat a crisis that has devastated the region in the past decade.
The psychedelic is derived from the iboga plant, a shrub native to parts of South Africa. Ibogaine is classified as a Schedule I drug in the U.S., but is unregulated in many other countries, including Mexico, where it has grown in popularity as a treatment for opioid use disorder. It's also attracted controversy given without proper medical supervision. It can be risky, even deadly, and it's not a silver bullet to end addiction. The compounds in ibogaine has shown promise in treating addiction, particularly to opioids, but researchers need to determine how it works, said Janice Ona, a researcher coordinator at the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Science in Spain, who studies ibogaine.
The Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission plans to vote on whether to allow the state to start funding that research. The move could allocate $42 million taken from nearly $840 million it received from opioid lawsuit settlements with pharmacies, drug makers, and drug distributors to study ibogaine therapy. Study of the substance in the U.S. would allow researchers to better understand its safety, its efficacy at a time when new therapies for addiction are badly needed. In 2020, nearly yearly drug overdose deaths surpassed 100,000 for the first time. Opioids played a role in 75% of those deaths.
Wow. Kentucky is tied with Tennessee for the second highest drug overdose death rate in the country. 55% per 55.6 per 1,000 deaths. The most recent data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows only West Virginia has a higher mortality rate from drug overdoses at more than 90 per 1,000. The region has been the hardest hit in the country since 2010. Brian Hubert, the chair and executive director at the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission, came across ibogaine when he was exploring therapies that might work better than opioid replacement therapies, including methadone. I can't even pronounce that. Let's just go into words I can read, which are considering the leading treatments. Yeah. Bupropion, it looks like some type of morphine, and naltrexone. Yeah.
I have never heard either name, so
You're right. Yeah.
they have about a 25% success rate, and that success rate that is exceptionally mediocre. Ibogaine could be an opportunity for a significant breakthrough, Hubbard said. He took the idea from Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who greenlighted the commission's request to explore the possibility of ibogaine research. In September, the commission heard testimony from dozens of addiction and psychedelic experts and political figures in favor of the therapy, as well as people who have used ibogaine. The group is waiting on additional testimony before it schedules a vote on funding, Hubbard said.
What's happening in Kentucky is really important, says Alan Davies, the director of Center for Psychedelic Drug Research and Education at Ohio State University. If the commission votes in favor of funding, that will single-handedly be the absolute biggest amount of resources into funding anything related to psychedelic research, let alone for ibogaine. And it should be done. It should be explored scientifically. The idea of using psychedelics to help people with substance use disorder, though, is not new.
True. Research published last year found that psilocybin, the hallucinogenic compound found in magic mushrooms, helped alcoholics reduce their drinking. This year, the National Institutes for Health granted funding to Johns Hopkins University scientists to study whether the same drug could help smokers quit. The thinking goes that psychedelic trips conducted in clinical settings with therapists that guide patients could help patients process information in a different way to arrive at conclusions that help them get sober.
A powerful trip on ibogaine is what shook Bobby Lachlan of Playa Vista, California, from his dependence on opioids. Lachlan, 34, has been using the drug since college, started with prescription pills and quickly progressing to heroin. In a last-ditch effort to get clean, he flew to Mexico with $8,000 in cash to try ibogaine therapy.
And that sounds like a Hail Mary, he said. It seemed like a Hail Mary. The single trip was potent, and it threw Lachlan into the equivalent of hell. He remembered, he said he felt like he could barely move and hallucinated for hours, an experience that went from terrifying to enlightening. When it was over, he said, he was completely changed. I knew I had a window of opportunity to restructure my life, said Lachlan, who has been sober for more than a decade. After having been so far removed from yourself, it's like getting to know an old friend, he added, through tears of being sober. Especially if it's a friend that you may know. It's like I never knew that I would see him again.
Yeah. Okay, this story continues on. We're running a little long on the time, but it's good to see that they're looking into this because, I've heard about its advantages in the past, and it looks, from what we've read, this is looking pretty promising.
Promising, yes.
Yeah.
And it has to be studied. I'm glad. I'm surprised the state's doing it, but I'm glad.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, it's break time to medicate. Glenn and I'll be right back after our session. You are watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here on the Pace Radio Network.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Pace Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And we're back from our session and ready to bring you some more psychedelics and cannabis educational news. Well, Glenn, you know, we come across stories that talk about how some of the cannabis taxes, how it can do good for the communities and help them and so on and so forth. And our next story here from the entrepreneur continues with that is Arkansas is using medical cannabis taxes to fund free school lunches. I hate the idea that taxes are being applied to medical cannabis, but I'm very glad to see the taxes are going to fund free school lunches for kids.
Yeah, it's a lot better than just being dumped into general revenue.
You got it, brother. You got it.
Arkansas is using medical cannabis tax revenue to fight food insecurity in the state, with $87 million sent to schools throughout the state to help students access low-cost or free lunches. Portions of Arkansas's medical cannabis tax revenue are being used to fight food insecurity in the state. KATV reports the state will send $87 million to schools throughout Arkansas to help students access low-cost or free lunches. Twice I said that.
Medical Marijuana Commission spokesperson Scott Hardin told KATV that the state has so far collected $115 million from cannabis tax. If someone is on a reduced school lunch, if they are now paying 50 cents to $1, that medical marijuana revenue steps in and pays that to ensure that a student gets that for free. So really, students in the state will not be having to pay whatever that burden is, 50 cents or $1.50 to have reduced school lunch. So it really is. It's affecting Arkansans in a positive way.
The funds have been earmarked to help University of Arkansas Medical School to obtain a National Cancer Center designation. But Hardin did not explain why the change was made. Since the medical cannabis program launched in the state in 2016, sales have topped $1 billion according to state data. There were 98,011 active medical cannabis ID cards in Arkansas as of December 2nd.
There you go. So being used to help feed kids at school.
Yep.
Which is a good thing. And I know they have those type of programs around here. Just so you know, Glenn, your screen went very black. And maybe I've lost Glenn. We'll find out. And I will continue. See if he makes his way back to the show. All right. We'll just Continue along right here. Headline. This one comes to us from the drink business. The drinks business says, could magic mushrooms have a greater society value than alcohol? Says in a deep dive comparison into the differences between the two substances, Psychology Today outlined how, despite its current legal restrictions, psilocybin is showing potential in clinical research for treating various mental health disorders. The report pointed out how both alcohol and psilocybin share a commonality in that they can both cause alterations in consciousness, but they have distinct differences in their chemical structure on effects on the brain, which also means differences in their impact on health and well-being.
Okay. The psychology specialist title indicated that taking this into account from a health and therapeutic perspective, psilocybin may be of greater societal value than alcohol, especially considering the emergent interest in its applications for depression, anxiety, PTSD, and end-of-life distress. According to the findings, although there is a wider social acceptance of alcohol, it has the potential to be misused. Ironically, the magic from the mushroom could assist with this. Could assist with the diet to be some of the most promising new psychiatric research advances. Psilocybin as a viable treatment for alcohol use disorder and many other things.
Yeah. Looking at the two substances as a comparison, the report reiterated how alcohol primarily affects the central nervous system by enhancing the effects of the neurotransmitter GABA. As a dependent or depressant, it slows down brain function and neutral activity. Comparatively, psilocybin is a more complex molecule that reportedly works by affecting the serotonin receptors in the brain, particularly the 5-HT2A receptor. As a result, experts identify how it can cause changes in perception, mood, and thought, often referred to as the psychedelic or hallucinogenic experiences.
In terms of physical and psychological effects, the report described how alcohol can cause decreased inhibition, impaired judgment, poor motor coordination. Plus, psilocybin can cause visual and auditory hallucinations, poor motor coordination, an altered sense of time, spiritual experiences, and introspection. However, in terms of health risks, while alcohol still has a risk of addiction and can cause serious health problems comparatively, psilocybin is generally considered non-addictive and has a low risk of overdose, and medical problems from psilocybin use are rare.
Mm-hmm. The report pointed out how alcohol is legal in most states of the world, or most parts of the world, for adults, and is considered an important part of social, cultural, or religious practices in a majority of cultures and countries around the world. While psilocybin is currently still illegal in the U.S., Canada, and many other countries, despite there being a growing movement to reevaluate its legal status, particularly for mental health. Ultimately, it concluded that while both substances alter consciousness and can affect mood and perception, they do so through very different mechanisms. Added to this, it identified how alcohol has a high potential for abuse, while conversely, psilocybin mushrooms have been used by traditional healers in Central and South America for centuries, and research is ongoing. Good.
Yep.
And that came from a place that is drink related. This comes from the drinks business, and so it was good to see.
Yep.
So they're getting
following in the steps of cannabis medically, anyway.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of the big differences that they talked about, about basically, alcohol can create hallucinations and psilocybin on the same thing, but it was the health effects.
Yeah,
and was really a big difference.
And the detriments of alcohol. We've all seen alcohol problems.
Collateral damage.
Everybody I know has seen alcohol problems. So
yeah, yeah. All right, on to the next story. This one comes to us from Marijuana MJ Biz Daily, and it says landmark Netherlands cannabis experiment set to begin this week.
The Netherlands cannabis cultivation and distribution experiment is set to kick off Friday in what executives are calling a milestone for the industry in Europe, even though the supply chain trial is starting years later than originally planned. In September, the Dutch cabinet decided to give the startup phase of the closed coffee shop chain experiment a start date of December 15th, 2023.
At the time, only 2 legal growers, Canadelaar and Vita Group, had been authorized to deliver to coffee shops in the municipalities of Breda and Tilburg. The program, which was supposed to involve 10 cannabis cultivators supplying dozens of stores, originally was intended to launch years ago.
Industry sources say the project faced delays in part stemming from the meticulous Public Administration Probity Screening Act, which effectively involved corporate background checks. Major challenges for selected growers trying to set up financing for their operations.
The Dutch government said the next 2 growers, currently unidentified, are expected to start supplying coffee shops in Breda and Tilburg in early 2024. In the first phase, which is scheduled to start this week, about 19 participating coffee shops in Breda and Tilburg will be allowed to offer both legally grown cannabis and unregulated products. Oh, both of them. We can't do that here.
Yeah. After 6 months in approximately June or July 2024, all participating coffee shops will have a transition period of about 6 weeks. At the conclusion of the transition period, the participating shops would be allowed to sell only legal products. Wow.
So that won't last long as far as selling both products. 6 weeks, yeah. For decades, coffee shops in the Netherlands have operated a system where cannabis sales are legally tolerated, but cultivation has been prohibited. That effectively means consumers had no way to verify where their cannabis was grown, by whom, when, and under what conditions.
A cannabis industry executive told MJ Biz Daily, on condition of anonymity, I can't say it, sorry, that the launch of the experiment represents a landmark for the industry. It's one of the first times in Europe you can show that a closed value chain from cultivation to retail can work, the executive said, adding that the system gives consumers a new level of transparency that does not exist in the current coffee shop system.
The new experiment will introduce track and trace system to provide more transparency. Cannabis that is produced legally will come in a package with a QR code, which will give consumers access to information, including where and when the product was cultivated and by which company. The experiment will last 4 years, at which time a decision will be made on whether it will be extended.
4 years.
Yeah. So this is obviously an awful long study for them to go 4 years.
Yeah, and then they're expecting just to cut it off and go back to the old system instantly. That's kind of a weird thing.
Sure is. This doesn't make sense. But all right, on to the next stories. Headline there says from MJ Biz Daily: accessing 5 state cannabis markets launched in the past year.
4 states in the Northeast and Midwest launched adult use cannabis sales in the past year, while 1 in the Deep South began medical cannabis sales. This roundup highlights key developments in the past 12 months in New York, Connecticut, Missouri, and Maryland, which all began recreational markets, as well as in Mississippi, which launched an MMJ sales.
Despite some setbacks, including a major recall and inventory shortages, the rollouts in Connecticut, Missouri, Maryland, and Mississippi have gone fairly smoothly for operators. New York, by contrast, has been plagued by financial and legal challenges from day one, according to industry insiders and the MJ Biz Daily reporting.
Each market snapshot below, listed in chronological order, also showcases recent sales figures for these states, MJ Biz fact book projections, and market assessments from local operators. New York, whose adult use market, December 29th, 2022. And their sales, 110 million through December 2023. First year projection was 900 million. Key developments. New York's recreational rollout has been rocky as lawsuits, a dearth of funding for social equity licenses, municipal opt-outs, and the shortage of retail properties have curtailed growth.
Yeah. Now I'm not going to read it all through. I'm just going to go down to the next state.
Okay.
Yeah. In Connecticut, their adult use market launched January 10th of this year. They had $112 million of sales through October. The projection from MJ Biz was $200 million. Key developments was that Connecticut's initial adult use rollout included only 4 producers, catch-all term for vertically integrated cultivators and manufacturers, and 7 retailers, both among the lowest contingent of any recreational launch.
Missouri, adult use market started February 3rd, 2023, 833.4 million through October. Their projection was 800 million. So Missouri likes it so far. The Midwest newest market is on pace to eclipse 1 billion in annual adult use sales, buoyed by a 6% sale tax and customers from neighboring states. Missouri borders 8 states. Among them, only Illinois has recreational sales. Well, that's a big thing right there.
Yeah. Maryland adult use market started in July of this year, so it's just started. They've had $213 million worth of sales through to October, so that's what, 4 months?
Yep.
Yeah. Key developments was that this limited license market opened with nearly every medical marijuana retailer, cultivator, and processor converting license to serve the adult use consumers.
And Mississippi started on January 25th, 2023, 37.9 million through November, and their 10 million was their projection. So they're almost 4 times, and this is only medical. The newest MMJ market in the Deep South has performed surprisingly well, despite nearly 4 dozen Mississippi cities and counties opting out of the program.
Wow. Yeah. So here's a map where cannabis is legal in the United States. So the yellow is recreational, green is medical, and gray is none.
And I'm assuming this gray is going to change at least to medical over the next couple of years.
I would think so. Because basically the gray spots is the only spots where there isn't any legal of either, right? So there's not very many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, they seem to be most of the ones you expect would be against it.
Yeah. All righty. Last story of the day. And this one is coming to us from the Financial Post. And the headline on it says, National Cannabis Roundtable releases Inaugural Corporate Social Responsibility Report.
December 13th in Washington, D.C. Today, the National Cannabis Roundtable, NCR, is proud to announce the release of its inaugural Corporate Social Responsibility Report for 22 and 23, entitled Better Tomorrow Than Today. This comprehensive report highlights the collective efforts of NCR and its members companies to create positive impact on the cannabis industry and the communities they serve in the areas of criminal justice reform, equity and business opportunity, workforce utilization, and health disparities.
We named this report Better Tomorrow Than Today to not only celebrate the great work of our members, but to serve as acknowledgement of the existing gaps within the U.S. cannabis market and our concentrated efforts to address these challenges, says Sophia Galoup, the Executive Director of the National Cannabis Roundtable. Looking ahead, we will continue to create initiatives and programs to contribute to the overall growth of the industry. We remain steadfast in setting new benchmarks for corporate social responsibility and call on others to join us in this transformative journey.
As we build a better tomorrow, we must be mindful of the missteps made in the past and work diligently to usher in a new market that has equal parts viability and equity, said Precious Assange Aris, editor of the NCR's 2023 CSR report, and he's the CEO and founder of Precious Cannabis Co. The work being done by the National Cannabis Roundtable has been extensive to provide the the cannabis policy reform needed for sustainable industry for years to come, while holding fast to corporate social responsibilities that aim to support diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Highlights of the report include the National Roundtable hosted a symposium on Capitol Hill on clemency policies and criminal justice reforms, resulting in the introduction of bipartisan federal legislation to create an expungement mechanism for low-level violations of cannabis laws and provided an expedient overlay process that clears the deck of non-felony cannabis offenses lingering in the federal system. Since the symposium, NCR also partnered with the Wilden Project and Oklahoma Appleseed to prepare petitions for the expedient release of more than a dozen individuals currently incarcerated because of cannabis convictions. The Weldon Project, that is a fellow who was incarcerated and for cannabis convictions, and he was released after many, many, many years. And he's a past guest on the Pace Radio Show. Go ahead, Glenn. Yeah.
Cresco Labs provided $735,000 in direct support for restorative justice organizations and sponsored over 60 community and resource fairs across 9 states, assisting 8,000 individuals as part of the Summer of Social Justice initiative. Influence launched the Women's Innovation Leaders Forum to address the need for women across the horticulture cannabis industry to meet quarterly to discuss innovation, community, and cross-collaboration. Members benefit through engagement in direct cross-pollination with leading women across the horticulture industry worldwide, ensure the best practices, innovation, insights, and the ability to contribute to the next generation of women leaders.
Green Spoon Marner expanded its partnership and services offered as a part of the Project New Leaf, which mobilizes its talented attorneys across the U.S. to provide pro bono expungement and record sealing services to individuals in underserved communities, and more particularly those impacted by the war on drugs. A company by the name of iLava worked with the Arizona Marijuana Expungement Coalition's Reclaim Their Future campaign to help individuals with marijuana-related public criminal records have those records expunged, hosting a free legal aid clinic that resulted in 3 individuals already having their records expunged.
Nice. Mana Supply Co. played an active role in local community events throughout Maryland, Colorado, and Missouri, conducting frequent community events and more than a dozen local and national charitable partners to raise fund and bring light to each of their missions. Pura Vida Investments raised more than $1 million in peer-to-peer fundraising to support the Bowery mission in helping individuals experiencing homelessness and hunger through compassionate care services, residential programs, and transitional housing, in addition to providing funding and volunteers for the organization's nightly dinner service. Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of companies. Here we go. Yeah, I guess this is we're down to the end here. Tilt Holdings, they partnered with Shinnecock Indian Nation, providing financial investment, training, and mentoring to help establish Little Beach Harvest, the first tribally owned, operated, and tax-free cannabis dispensary in eastern Long Island. And this True Leaf launched its National Supplier Diversity Initiative, providing education and professional development resources while also creating mutually beneficial business relationships with the supplier base that is reflective of the customers and communities that they serve, encouraging diverse suppliers who bring innovation and value to a supply chain.
And one more, UltraGo Incorporated. Oh, sorry, there's Verano too.
Yeah.
2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So companies that are making some difference, that are helping out, as it says, socially responsible, right?
I like that story. I like to hear corporations actually doing things.
They're helping out people. Correct. All right. Anything you want to say before we head her out?
No, I just want to get warm.
Just want to get. I think there's extra warm room in that place.
There is. I'm just not in it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, from the Legacy420.com news desk, that's the Pace News Report for December the 14th. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and the Legacy420.com. And in closing, we'd like to say thanks for watching. Plus, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. See you all on Monday. Bye-bye.
Peace.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.